Hello and welcome along to another short Solidworks modeling video. In this video I'm going to be looking at the next exercise that we'll be doing in class, this exercise here, modeling a paperclip. So this is hopefully a fairly short and simple exercise really to demonstrate the sweep function or the sweep feature within Solidworks. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to create a two-dimensional sketch, and we're going to use a sweep command, which is similar to the extrude, but it'll extrude a cross section along a curved path that we'll define by a 2D sketch. I'm going to go ahead and create a new part, and I'm going to create a 2D sketch on, I suppose for this it doesn't really matter, I'm going to create it on the top plane here. So as I said, I'm going to essentially model this part by using a sweep, and I'm going to do a 2D sketch of what will essentially be the center line running along through the center of the wire of the paperclip here. Okay, so I'll create a sketch on the top plane, and what I'll do is I'm going to actually what I'll do is I'm going to use the snipping tool. I'm just going to make a snip of this sketch and copy and paste that into my sketch in Solidworks. So that'll just give me something to refer to as I'm sketching in Solidworks, and I'll delete it when I'm finished. Okay, so to create this, what I'm looking to create is this center line running down through the middle of the wire of the paperclip, and that will be the path for my sweep. So I'm going to do that by creating 3 circles, and then using the trim command to remove some of the half of each of the circles. Okay, so I'll use the circle command here, and I'm going to set the origin to be the center of this circle here. You'll see the other dimensions are relative to this center point here. So I'll start with the first circle here, like so. That's going to be my diameter 8 circle. This circle here then is level, or the center of this circle is level with this one. So I'm going to create that circle over here horizontally across from the first circle. And they are dimensioned 8 millimeters apart. So center to center here is 8 millimeters. Okay. You see when you first put in your first dimension into Solidworks as well, it rescales everything to that scale. Okay, so that's those 2 circles there. This one is a diameter 8. This one is diameter 6. Okay, and we have say a line coming across from the bottom quadrant of this circle here, a horizontal line coming across. And you see there it's automatically put in some relations for me. It's put in a coincident relation with the quadrant of the circle here, and because this is a horizontal line, it's also put in a tangent relation. So this is tangent to this circle, and this line is horizontal as well. And the last thing then is, or the next thing rather, I'm going to put in this diameter 7 circle here. Now it's not immediately obvious from the sketch, but that diameter 7 circle is not it's not level with the other 2, it's slightly raised up. So if you imagine this diameter 8 circle here, we draw a tangent from the top of that circle would be tangent to this diameter 7 circle, so the midpoint of that circle there would be maybe 0.5 millimeter above the midpoint of this circle here, if this line is horizontal and it's tangent to the 2 circles. So let's say if I put in another circle over here somewhere, I want this circle, or I want a line connecting the top of this circle, and I want it to be tangent to this circle over here. So if I move the mouse slowly along it, you'll see here it's going to put in both a coincident and a tangent relation. Here it's just coincident. There's a certain point along here where it's both coincident and tangent. Now I could manually do that separately if I wanted to. Oops. So let's say if I just draw a circle, or draw a line from this circle to this circle here, I can come along later and highlight the line, control click on the circle, and make that tangent afterwards. And you'll see what it does there is it moves the circle so that it's tangent with the line. Okay, now I want to make this line here horizontal, so I can just highlight the line itself and make it a horizontal line by adding a relation there. And I'll dimension this circle as well to be diameter 7. Okay. So what else do we need? We need a line from the bottom of this circle, a horizontal line coming across, and that'll be tangent with the diameter 6 circle. So a line from the bottom of this circle, and this is going to, if I connect to the bottom of that there, you'll see it's going to be coincident with the circle. It's going to be vertically below the midpoint of this circle. It's going to be a horizontal line, and it's going to be a tangent to the circle. So those 4 yellow symbols there are the previews of the automatic sketch relations that are going to be put in. Okay, so this line that I've just put in here is tangent to the 6mm circle. It's coincident with the circle. It's horizontally directly underneath the center of the circle as well. And also then the line itself is horizontal. So I could manually put in each one of those sketch relations separately, but if you're just careful about when you're drawing the line and just keep an eye on what the automatic sketch relations are when you put them in, it can speed things up a lot. Okay, what else do we need? We need a line coming across from the top of that circle, horizontally across. So from the top quadrant of the circle there, line coming across horizontally, and you'll see the automatic relations again. This is a horizontal line, and it's going to be tangent to that circle. Okay, so that's almost it. Then a couple of little dimensions to put in. I'm going to put in this 23 from the midpoint of the diameter 8 circle. It's 23 across to the end of both of these lines here. So what I could do is dimension one of them and then maybe put in a relation between those two endpoints there. It says those two endpoints are vertically one under the other. So if one of them moves, they both move. Okay, so that was, if I use my dimension tool, from the midpoint of that circle to the end point of one of these circles here. Depending on where I put my mouse, then you'll either get an aligned distance of 22 in this case, or a horizontal dimension. So I want a horizontal dimension there. That should be 23 millimeters. And I want another horizontal dimension from the center of that circle to the center of the diameter 7 circle, and that needs to be 30. Okay, so that's the basic setup of the sketch. I just need to remove now the half of each one of these circles, and to do that I'm going to use the trim entities command that we spoke about before, and that defaults to the power trim option here. So the power trim option allows you to, as we spoke about in class, it allows you to just draw with your left mouse button. So if I draw here, it'll cut away half of that circle until the next point where it intersects some other entities, which would be the top and bottom of the circle. likewise here, if I draw through that here, it leaves half the circle behind, and here as well. Okay, so I'm left with 3 half circles, and everything is still fully defined. Just check that, because sometimes if you use the trim command, depending on how your sketch relations are set up, if you had a line that was tangent to the curve that you just deleted, you might lose that relation. You might need to manually insert the relation back in again. But for now, that sketch looks okay. I think everything is fully defined. So I don't need this sketch here anymore. I think I'll leave it for the moment, because we have one last dimension we need from that, and that's the diameter of the wire itself. So I'm going to accept the changes to that sketch there now. And what we have is just a 2-dimensional sketch here, sketch 1. So what we're going to use is we're going to use what's called a sweep command. So I'll go back to the features tab here. You'll see previously we've used the extrude command, we've used the revolve command. Another one here is a sweep, or a swept boss base. And you can see it here, sweep creates a closed profile along an open or closed path. So what that means essentially is we're going to take an area. You could draw a separate sketch here. For example, I could sketch the cross-sectional area of this wire and extrude that circular area along a curved path. Now the curve that we sweep it along doesn't have to itself be closed off like you normally would have with a sketch. It's just a guide curve for the extrusion or for the sweep. Okay, so typically what you might do is you might create a sketch of some area and extrude it along this guide path here. Now for a simple case like this circular cross-section wire, there is a default within this sweep tool. I'll just open up the sweep tool and have a look at that here. So what we can do, we have the option here, do we want to use a sketch profile? So we could have a separate sketch here with, let's say, a triangle, and then you could extrude that triangular shape along this path. Or there is a kind of a default here that we can just use a circular profile. So what it'll do is it'll essentially create a sketch of a circle for us and then extrude that along the path. So we'll just pick a circular profile here, and the diameter of it here is just short of 1 millimeter. It's 0.99. Now what I'll do is I'll just, to explain why I've done that as 0.99, I'll just set this as a diameter 1 to start with. For our path here, this is the guide curve that we're going to extrude the circle along. I'm going to pick this sketch here, sketch 1. So sketch 1 is the path, and then it's going to create a circle for us with a diameter of 1 millimeter. So if I click OK on that, we'll see we get some rebuild errors. Now what's essentially happening here is if you look at this paperclip, imagine we have one circular cross section here. If that is actually touching the other circle, maybe we'll see it in this view here, if these two circles were actually touching each other, you would wind up with, if the two circles are touching, essentially the software is not able to rebuild that shape because there's a part here where those two cross sections are touching, and you have 0 thickness part between them. So to get around that, what I've done here is I've just slightly decreased that value there from 1.0 to 0.99 millimeters. And what that leaves us with then is just a very slight gap between the two circles where they're almost touching rather than actually touching. And you'll see the preview of it here. What it's essentially doing here now is it's sketching a circle here, extruding that circle all the way along this path until the end of the path, and it stops then. Okay, so I'll OK that here. And you should see, if we zoom right in, you'll see there's a very, very slight gap between those two there. If that gap wasn't there, you'd wind up with it's unable to create that geometry because you have two curves coming down to exactly touch, and you have very, very sharp. It's unable to create that geometry essentially. Okay, so that's that part finished. So it's an exercise, I suppose, in doing a two-dimensional sketch, working with the sketch relations, and then an introduction to that sweep command. Okay, thanks for watching.